Welcome back, Business Law. Today our topic is corporate social responsibility and business ethics. This is the intersection of the law. Sorry, someone was yelling at me there. An exciting introduction this morning. Sorry about that. This is the intersection of the law and business. The law can be seen as the rock bottom moral position of the business, and then you have maybe even a gray ground where you're trying to slide underneath the minimum standard of the law, and then you have those corporate actors that are going to rise above the law and apply a greater moral sense to themselves and their actions upon their community and the environment and those types of things. Legal compliance is the same thing as acting ethically, true or false. That is going to be false. Legal compliance is not the same thing as acting ethically, as we shall see. How do law and ethics differ? There is a difference there. Few would choose a professional service such as healthcare or otherwise because the provider had a record of perfect legal compliance. In order to remain ethical when making a business decision, the minimal standard that a business must meet is the legal standard. The legal standard, that's what you're looking for there. What is ethics? For our purposes, right or morally correct or ethically correct or morally desirable for our purposes, ethics and morality will be used as equivalent terms in our study of ethics. When studying business law, students should also study ethics in a business context. When studying business law, students should also study ethics in a business context. According to your text, ethics is the study of good or right behavior and decisions would be the correct answer. Oh, and in case you're jumping in, this is new. I read these pretty quickly, so when you get to a question, if you want to answer it yourself, just pause the video, take a second, answer the question, and then hopefully I will answer in there for you. The study of ethics. Utilitarianism, Jeremy Bentham. Utilitarianism emphasizes not rules but results. An action or set of actions is generally deemed good or right if it maximizes happiness throughout society. It was originally intended as a guide for legislatures. It is a thought process of cost-benefit analysis and administrative regulatory rules and calculations. You're looking at a majority perspective, and you're reasoning out projecting costs and benefits for Plan X versus Plan Y. If costs are going to be lower, benefits are going to be higher, typically looked at the short term. You're going to go with that action versus the maybe higher cost plan that might yield better results, but on a long-term perspective, quite often that is not going to be the action that's going to be chosen underneath the utilitarianism perspective. Here's a top 5 list for utilitarianism. Underestimating the cost of a certain decision to you or your company. The Ford Pinto, great example. There's a number of examples in that comic cartoon right there. In regards to underestimating costs, so you make the short-term decision that clearly shows low costs up front, but then unfortunately those long-term costs are not calculated correctly, and then there is a high long-term cost, and then at 20/20 hindsight, the business would of course made another decision. Underestimating the cost of harm or of a certain decision to someone else or some other group of people, looking at that long-term, guessing out that harm, assuming a smaller harm and then a larger harm is the outcome, favoring short-term benefits even though longer costs are greater, assuming that all values can be reduced to money, assuming that the greatest good for you or your company is in fact the greatest good for all. What are some key drawbacks to utilitarianism thinking at the corporate level? I'll let you read those and make a decision based on our lecture here and the text. What ethical perspective would allow that under certain circumstances it might be ethical to lie to a liar. And that's going to be utilitarianism would allow for that type of perspective. Again, it's because the decision is made off of a cost-benefit analysis. Therefore, you might make some morally gray decisions or unethical decisions based off of the views of ethics for some. Deontology, Immanuel Kant. Got a couple decent YouTube links there for you. Helps explain deontology, utilitarianism. Recommend viewing those. Of course, I didn't make them. I think the one has a little bit adult material in it, but not too bad. But anyways, be warned. I think it's the second video. It's not that bad. Or I won't put a link in there. But if you feel like you need a little bit more discussion, that can be a way to go. YouTube has a number of useful videos on these that go way more into the topic than I do. So if these are interesting to you, might be worth a 15 or 20 minute exploration there. Deontology. Having a moral intent and following the right rules is a better path to ethical conduct than achieving the right results. Here, an answer is chosen of the course of action should be universal. One, a course of action that would be good for all persons at all times. So this rule of universality is divided into consistency and reversibility. Reversibility requires you to actively imagine both sides. You're imagining yourself your side of the argument, or maybe if you're not taking either side, you're putting yourself into both positions of the argument, putting yourself in the other person's shoes, etc. Also, consistency. Consistency is you ask yourself, what if everyone made this decision? So an example of consistency is the fact that you cannot lie under deontology, because under the consistency rule, I would have to imagine that if I lie, I got to then say to myself, well, everyone on earth is going to lie at the same time, and if we're all lying at the same time, no one can trust one another, therefore society cannot move forward. Obviously a bad decision, therefore I can never again lie about anything, would be the result under deontology. So under the concept of deontology, no lying. Interacting with other people in a manner consistent with the manner in which we would like for them to interact with us is called the golden rule. Golden rule, that would be similar to the deontology thought process, but is a little bit different twist on it. Moving on to another concept, we have the 6 core values in our society, values that almost everyone agrees are important to them. This is under the Josephson's core values model. These 6 core values are trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness, caring, and citizenship. Note that these values are distinctly ethical. In society, we might portray or have respect for other attributes that a person could have, such as the person is rich, the person is wealthy, the person has respect, the person, well, you get the idea. That those types of, you can have other attributes or values that are not ethically, that are not distinctly ethical, like these 6 examples. Positive abstractions, example justice, that capture our sense of what is good are called values. Thinking about the consequences on yourself and others likely to be affected before you act, being accountable, is in line with the core value of trustworthiness. That would be false. Trustworthiness is a core value, it is an ethical value, but it's not a value that relates to thinking about the consequences on yourself and others before you act. Thinking about this from more of a business perspective, Josephson's core values models thinks about the different stakeholders, all the different potential gainers and losers in regards to a decision, and this is a very long list of gainers or losers. The type of stakeholders that Josephson imagines would be employees, the business owner, the surrounding community, government officials, thinking news persons. Oh my gosh, the word is totally escaping me. People related to the news. Journalists. There we go. There it is. There's the word. So they consider all of these stakeholders when making a decision, and they will consider how each stakeholder would gain or lose in order to determine which is going to be the best decision to make. There's another individual that studied economy. His name is Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman had a point of view in regards to ethical business decisions as well, and he felt that when you're making a business decision, you are beholden to the owners of the business. Those shareholders sound similar to stakeholder, but is different. A stakeholder under the Josephson core value would certainly be shareholders, but Milton Friedman dilutes it down. The only stakeholder that Milton Friedman is concerned about is shareholders, is the actual owners of the business that has invested their money into the business. His belief is that business decisions should be made with the number one most critical importance being to make money for those business owners, because they have taken a large amount of money and invested it into the business, and whoever is caring for that money and making those strategic business decisions needs to make decisions to make that money grow. And that was his primary number one decision-making process. The only important stakeholder is the shareholders or business owners, whatever type of terminology you want to use in regard to those who invested money in the business. But Milton Friedman did feel that you needed to comply with the laws. So he would not advise doing ethically gray type of actions. He would want to see, or I should say legally gray types of actions. He wants compliance with the law as the minimum baseline. Oh, Milton Friedman, right here. Milton Friedman would have been most likely to agree with which of the following statements? It would be the second one. The CEO and the board should have a single-minded focus on delivering maximum value to shareholders of the business. Milton Friedman discussed that companies should maximize shareholder wealth by engaging in open competition without fraud or deceit. Conscious capitalism, moving to a higher ethical standard than the Milton Friedman, where legal compliance was a good ethical standard. As far as Milton Friedman was concerned, conscious capitalism raises the bar. Companies that practice conscious capitalism embrace the idea that profit and prosperity can go hand in hand with social justice and environmental stewardship. Chipotle sells burritos. When making an ethical decision, Chipotle must consider its duties to its various stakeholders. Which of the following is least likely to be a stakeholder of Chipotle? Sorry for the typo there, CPC. That is to be Chipotle. All of these are various stakeholders. Who is most likely to be the least important stakeholder? That is going to be your competitor. Your competitor is a stakeholder. It is an interest group that your business decisions are going to affect. Of course, out of all the different groups that you can imagine, your concern for your competitor's well-being is going to be on the lowest rung. Maximizing profits comes from a focus on higher purposes and harmonizing the interests of various stakeholders under what theory? Conscious capitalism is the answer. Short and sweet. Thank you all for listening. Good luck on your discussions, your replies, your midterms, your quizzes, all those things. Thank you all for your hard work. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns. Really appreciate everyone's hard efforts. This is Professor Dan Crane signing off.